Well, welcome back to another episode of the Contrary Beekeeper Show. It has been a little while since Dan and I were able to get together and sit down and do a podcast. It's been one heck of a year.
It's been quite chaotic. There's been a lot of moving around.
There's been a lot going on, and it hasn't stopped. And the next year is also shaping up to be pretty chaotic in a good way.
Yes, very much so.
And Dan, how has your year gone, and what's new with Dan and Red Dog Ranch?
There's a lot to that. We started production for our honey house. With everything going on, building a new building has been quite the challenge.
Sourcing materials and getting them on time and getting them where you can afford them too. Yeah,
we were fortunate before lumber went all crazy. We got all of our posts and trusses ordered and things like that. Metal shot up in price.
Yeah.
But just getting it in stock, getting it in the ground, I think garage doors were almost 6 months of waiting.
Yeah.
And those just came a week ago.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot going on. And we're building it ourselves with the help of some friends coming over. But right now we have a shell and we have a semi-level gravel floor.
If the roof leaks or the walls cave in, I'm sorry.
Oh, it happens. I have insurance.
But now you've got a huge building that's all dried in, and you're ready to keep after it. And I bet you'll have something ready to go for your spring pool.
I'd really like to.
Yeah,
that's the goal. Well, the goal last year was to do summer, but just materials alone completely.
Well, you've also got a lot going on too, with some of your other jobs and a lot of moving and a lot of new things going on too.
I did quit my job, but I got another one.
Smart man.
Yeah. So, I did switch careers and moved into something that's a little bit more time-consuming, but it's still...
The risk-reward's a little bit more elevated, too.
It is, but it still frees up more time for the bees because I now have a very long 4-day work week.
Yeah.
So I get those extra 3 days at home.
How'd your bees do coming out of last winter into the spring?
Pretty well.
Yeah.
So I wish I could give you numbers, but that's just too far back.
It seems, here we are, it's December, and trying to think back on all the things that happened. There's like some really big high points, and there's a lot of things that I think we would all probably like to do a little different. And but that's just that's every year. You learn, you kind of earn your stripes, and just kind of keep going with it. How did your spring look like? How were the bees doing? What was the build out like?
From what I recall, it was actually pretty good. We had a pretty quick build-up. It got a little overwhelming at times at home. So I definitely reached a point where the bees were getting very testy. And I was wondering if it was queen concerns or not. And since I kind of saw it spread across the whole yard, I did a count, and I think we were running about 30 hives out of one yard there. And with the monoculture and a few other beekeepers local to me, I just realized that we hit our carrying capacity. So
we also had a massive swarm of cicadas.
Yes.
I can remember we were working on your building, and the bees were just not happy.
No, and they were coming after us. They were putting up the trusses.
And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? I noticed there's a lot of beekeepers that were saying, our hives are getting testy all of a sudden. What's going on?
Did you have them here?
A little bit, not a lot.
There's a weird cycle. I don't know what it is, or there's someone smarter than me that clearly knows what's going on. But everyone said cicadas are going to be a nightmare this year. And they were. And the bees were already testy, though, before they showed up. And it really leaned towards, I thought, which was overcrowding in the yard. No, we ended up shrinking that yard substantially and kind of able to secure some land in another spot, and we drove them about 15 minutes across the county to our first out yard.
Yeah.
So we dropped, I think, 16 hives there.
That's great. So the first year you get another out yard, and the cicadas are winding down, and did it seem to help
substantially?
Yeah.
And I ordered queens from a queen breeder I know pretty locally. They have some pretty good queens.
Thank you for the shameless plugs.
Yes. And so we broke them down and we popped new queens in all them. And because the home yard queens, they were 2-3 years old, I specifically went after the ones that weren't stellar. So as we were breaking them down, we were pinching queens and building 5-frame Nucs in 10-frame boxes.
Yeah.
And then we load them all up, and that was the first time I actually ever used pallets. We built them and took them out on pallets, and we had a skid steer out there waiting for us from the farmer that owns the property. Happens also to be a family member. And we were able to unload them and get them set out there.
Yeah.
It was super easy and convenient. And I'm kind of starting to like working pallets a little bit.
A little bit. So you took 16 colonies to a new out yard, yep. And you're starting to you're starting out trying to figure out how to work pallets. It's different.
It is
from
very
working
much
a hive
so.
stand or whatever your configuration normally is. It's a lot different.
Yeah,
working pallets, and so you're getting to have a lot of new experiences trying to figure out workflow, but then also moving them around is kind of another thing to kind of.
Because I'm thinking this year they're going to have to get moved from where they're at currently, but it's not a large enough move to where I have to load them up. It's literally just picking them up with a skid steer and driving them to a new part of the farm.
Yeah.
Depending on what's going to be cropped in that field.
I was on the fence starting with pallets, but I think what's nice about them is if you have the equipment, a tractor or a forklift or a skid steer, something to move them around in, even if it's not the most picture-perfect setup, it's great to be able to take an entire yard and move it to a new yard for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Whether the flow was just completely weird this year, and
it was very unusual.
I mean, so we started off early. At Easter we started grafting and started getting everything kind of ramped up, and the queens did great. But then it almost seemed like by the time we got to mid-June, for us here where we're at, it was almost like lights out. Mm-hmm. There was nothing. Either it got warm and dry, or we were nothing but heavy rain. And so it seemed like we were lacking in pollen and lacking in nectar, which is a big, big challenge, trying to grow the bee yard out and make all those splits and then maintain them. And then, let's not even talk about the fall flow. There's nothing to say because there was none.
It was there, just barely.
Yeah, there.
It was like the tap was dripping.
It was real poor here. It was not good.
It was enough to where our bees stopped drawing new foundation. They just completely stopped dead in their tracks.
They were just stagnant.
Yep. Yeah. There was no growth, nothing. And it kind of had me a little bit worried with that new bee yard I started up in, I think, the mid to end of July.
Yeah.
So.
How'd the rest of the summer kind of unfold going into the fall for you there?
Good. We did all right with summer honey. I want to say we pulled in like 700 or 800 pounds.
Yeah.
Nothing spectacular to write home about, but we still got something to sell. Fall was dismal with 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So, but also at the same time, the fall flow, we had some hives already broken down that were in production previously that weren't there.
Yeah. The hard part about having the fall flow so poor is, we are not seasoned beekeeping veterans.
No, not in those.
You and I have been keeping bees for less than 10 years still, mm-hmm. And even at the 10-year mark or 20-year mark, we probably will still feel like beginning beekeepers to a certain extent. But as you try to get a picture of a baseline of what the nectar is doing, what the pollen is doing, mm-hmm. about what times they do it, to give you some kind of idea of consistency, you realize there really isn't any consistency. You can't bank on X amount of this or X amount of that. And the trick of that is, if you are in the business of making bees or making queens, and you are banking, or hopefully banking, you may be aggressive on how hard you split everything out, mm-hmm. And then you don't have a flow or lights are out. That's pretty challenging, especially if you're banking on fall flow to come in to bolster everything up to get them through the winter. Mm-hmm. And then what you end up doing is just feeding the tar out of everybody.
Is this a personal experience?
It's been a rough year.
Yeah,
it's been a rough year. But so you have your home yard, you've got the new out yard.
Yep.
You get them kind of broke out, split out. Did you feel like the colonies at the home yard started to smooth out when you?
Oh, the temperament changed within a month immediately.
Yeah.
So, and it changed, and we still had cicadas in the area too. It was the last little bit of them petering out, but it was.
How old were some of the queens that you had in that yard, do you think?
2-3 years old.
I'm seeing a huge difference in 2- and 3-year-old queens, mm-hmm. Versus 1-year-old queens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to just employ something that I've learned from Bob Benny is
requeen annually
every year.
Yep.
The production, what I'm seeing just in brood alone is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a 2-year and a 3-year-old queen, yes, they're going to produce, but it seems like the percentages that they start to kind of dwindle is one thing. That's one component, but also the overall hive demeanor changes too.
Oh yeah,
they're a little bit more. They've got a little bit more attitude,
mm-hmm.
And they also definitely have a much greater tendency of swarming.
Yes,
or absconding.
Yes, I don't know what it is about 2 years. They seem flightier.
Right, those first year queens. I mean, you can almost do no wrong. They're just super producers. Mm-hmm. You know, that gets tricky, you know, at a certain scale. If you aren't producing your own queens or you don't have a source for good quality queens, that can be a real challenge. You know, where do I source queens? What kind of queens are there? They're going to do well for me. That can be a little bit tricky for someone. But it sounds like you know a guy and you got some pretty decent queens, and hopefully it helped out the overall outlook.
Oh yeah,
not only to finish up last year, but to start giving you some good bees to get through the winter to come out into the spring.
So, and we're definitely going to be getting a lot more queens next year, too.
Well, good queens really, I think, do make a huge difference.
Yeah. The rough plan so far is, in the whole shortage of trying to get materials and things like that, I had a realization that if I'm going to be palletizing, I'm going to be needing equipment, other things like that to move the operation along. I started calling around and started doing my due diligence and trying to find equipment.
You found something because you're wearing a good-looking hat there.
Yeah, well, the shortage hit everybody. We talked to a few. I decided skid steer would probably be the best way to go, just because it's going to be used for more than just the bees.
Right.
And it's quite universal. And I got all the way up to 2-year weights.
Yep.
And as much as I'd say it just doesn't slice the cheese, and neighbor got a new one about a year back, and I played in it a little bit. It actually set roof trusses for us, and I really liked it, so we ended up having to go get a Kubota skid steer.
On tracks.
Which
is nice.
Oh, it's so smooth.
The only thing that's better than buying a brand new skid steer on tracks is when your buddy does.
Yes.
And
it's free delivery to your buddy's farm.
Oh man, that was great. Yeah, we enjoyed using that thing.
Yes.
For some new work there.
I'm pretty sure your son's asking for one for Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So you got the bees straightened around. You got them kind of cooled off. Mm-hmm. You got them split out, separate yards. They're producing a little bit better. Their attitudes have been adjusted. How do you feel like you did getting them ready for winter, and what did you do?
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Image Farm. If you're interested in Nucs, packages, queens, or supplies, visit us on the web at naturesimagefarm.com.
How do you feel like you did getting them ready for winter, and what did you do?
.com.
I think I'm as ready as I could be for the situation.
Is that a no? Is that we'll see?
Yeah, it's a we'll
see.
How
the spring does?
Yeah. Give me a few more months and I'll tell you if I was ready or not. As normal, it came too quick. There's too much going on.
It's not like we had since July to prepare for it or anything either.
And I think part of it, too, is I was holding on a lot of hope to that maybe a fall flow would appear.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely did not. So...
How long did it take you to finally accept the fact that there was not a decent flow, and when did you pull your supers off?
Probably about a week or two after all the goldenrod turned brown.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's probably a pretty good sign if the goldenrod's not going to do anything is when the plant turns brown.
That starts dying back and already past seeding. And So, no, I definitely should have probably done it sooner. I was really, really banking on the fact that goldenrod would fill a second deep for the first out yard that we built. And I think we maybe had like 3 or 4 frames out of each 10 frame double deep on top, if that makes any sense whatsoever, that was filled. So they all immediately got knocked back down to a single deep.
Is that what you went in the winter with, mostly singles?
Yeah. Everything at the home yard is a deep and a medium super. And then the out yard, since they wouldn't fill that out. And were yours taking sugar water or any kind of syrup?
They did constantly, but they
would they stay stagnant in size?
They took the sugar. We fed. I guess I'm not too proud to admit it. We're a little lazy when it comes to feeding, which is why the bucket feeders are so handy, because I can just put the feed on, and if they take it, great, and if they don't, great. What I noticed is the feed Pro Sweet is what we use. So we're just I would like to get to the point where I had enough time to see if I can't stretch that out. Maybe come down to a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1, but Pro Sweet's like a 3-to-1. They built out great in the spring. They built a ton of wax with it, and the bee numbers they boomed. When it came time to the fall, which is when most folks switch to a thicker feed, which is what Pro Sweet is, the goldenrod flow was so sketchy that there would be like a day where they would hit it and then they would like leave it alone. So over the course of like 3 weeks, they would finally finish a 1-gallon bucket. Now, when they are hungry, and they're taking feed like early spring, that bucket it can be 4 days. It could be a week, depending on what's out there. So, yes, they were taking Pro Sweet, but they were feeding at kind of a roller coaster interval. And then the hives that were in the worst shape would empty the buckets quicker, and the ones that had just enough store, there was enough coming in, they seemed to just keep it in reserve a little bit.
So we had the sugar to the that out yard the entire time, and it just seemed
like a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Or probably, you're probably mixing a 2-to-1 or somewhere there.
1.5 to somewhere 1. Yeah. The entire time though, they'd take it in, but they wouldn't grow. Stayed the same size all through fall. Wouldn't get any larger, wouldn't get any smaller. So, and of course we did the precautionary before we went through, and we only had one hive that had a ridiculous mite count, but everything else was 1s and 0s.
Really?
Yeah. And then home yard was the same story, but then we'll get into that later about treating mites, give it a few weeks. I'm trying to
forget about that.
Yeah.
Still.
But I don't feel stellar about getting prepared for winter, but I know that I'm still in a lot better place.
Somewhere.
Yes.
You probably feel like every year it seems like you do a little bit better, you get a little further ahead. It seems like no matter what you do, you're not where you want to be, but you end up landing somewhere that's hopefully good enough. And we just do the things that we can do throughout the wintertime and early spring to see if we can't give them a good shot of it coming out of it.
I did shim all the hives that don't have a second super on it, so that entire out yard got shimmed with the mountain camp method.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's an insurance policy you can't beat.
It seems to be, if we combine the years of beekeeping between us and the amount of colonies that we've put dry sugar on versus not, and maybe you've had a different experience, but it seems like one thing I've seen year after year is the colonies that have a little bit of sugar left or a lot of sugar left are the ones that are booming and exploding and look awesome. The colonies that there's absolutely no sugar left in it, they're dead. Are dead outs. They end up starving out. So, maybe we could do better on checking in on those stores and making sure they've got enough through kind of throughout that. It seems like it's right about Valentine's Day to the 1st of March seems to be the deal breaker for them. We can go out right now. It's easy to feel good about where the bee yards are right now because we haven't kind of hit the trouble spots quite yet. But we've had some horrendous weather. The roller coasters that we've had, we've been high teens all the way to 70 degrees in a 2-day period. That's ridiculous.
Funny you should mention weather, just because it made me think of something. We did something this year that I don't think we've done in a very, very long time, at least back to when I know I first started.
What's that?
I bought equipment.
Yeah.
I bought boxes.
Yeah.
I was quite proud that up until this year, every box on my farm, except for a handful, I've made. And I know you are very similar too.
Yeah.
but along with building boxes, we made a huge change to our approach too.
Well, you get. I think you and I are at a point to where we're in these weird little transitions as we scale up.
Yeah.
To where now we're talking about moving bees on pallets.
Yeah.
We're literally ordering supplies by the pallet.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting hundreds and hundreds of gallons of feed at a time rather than mixing dry sugar. So we're at a point to where we're so short on time that we're putting a little extra money out on inputs to actually get the equipment and get the products out into the yard. Mm-hmm. And we're just, I feel like, into that scale where it really makes a lot of sense.
I was thinking, well, it made me think of the weather thing, but we're adding things that still take time. This is our first year wax dipping.
It's been, that was great. We spent time now with Cayman Reynolds. He showed me the ins and the outs, exactly how he does it. We kind of took that back here to the farm, and we tried to modify a couple different ways to do that. If you want to see more in detail, you can check out our YouTube channel at Nature's Image Farm. You can see Dan and Greg just going through having a good time, wax dipping a bunch of boxes.
Try not to deep fry our fingers.
Not trying to deep fry your fingers. That was a lot of fun. That was a fun video to watch back too, and it
was a fun time.
It was a fun one to make, and between the both of us, we've at this point have wax dipped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boxes, deeps and mediums and lids and bottoms and you name it. And I really like it because I love the way a box looks when it's wax dipped versus when they kind of get older and run down or painted. But they kind of develop. They get a little bit darker and richer and warmer too. I remember the first ones that I ever seen was when I was down in Florida visiting Indian summer honey farms, Chris Werner and family and all them. When I was down there with Bob Benny, and I got to see just loads and loads, and just thousands of hives all wax dipped. Got to see how they do it, and I thought, man, well, if you have an outfit like Chris Werner and family.
Yeah.
And they're taking the time to wax dip boxes, and we're talking 3,000-4,000 hives, migratory beekeepers from Wisconsin to Florida. It's probably for good reason. And then got to visit with Cayman. He showed me how he does it too. And then, came back to the farm, and you and I kind of powwow and see what we could do. We tried to rig up an old job box, which is ideal. I didn't have much money in it at all. A regular job box that you'd store your tools and things, and but that thing just wouldn't hold water. Nope. Just the junky, crappy steel. Chinese steel, Taiwanese. I don't know what it was.
Chinesium.
I mean, you fought that thing constantly to get any kind of a weld to stick.
Yep. And hopefully the new one will be done in about a week.
Yep. You've been busy building up a new one. I can remember getting to the point to where I think as I get a little bit older and I get okay with acknowledging when something's not working, the older I get, the more experience I get, the faster I get to that point to where I say, okay, stop, let's do something different. But we spent the better part of a day trying to get that job box straightened around.
That was me, you, and Mike.
Yeah. And Jeremy Hill was over, and he was helping us out too. And, over in the resource accumulation pile at the farm, I had an old maple syrup evaporator that was just a glorified fruit cart. It is a fruit cart. Just sitting there, stainless, already machine welded and beautiful, and let's stop. Let's just, call it quits on the job box. We'll just store tools in it.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing in place. And then almost within minutes, we're wax dipping boxes, put a heat source underneath, get the wax in, go to town. And it's been great. Its limitations, it's shallow. So we have to flip our boxes over. But it's worked out great, and it's got us a good learning experience and figure out what we like, what we don't like.
We're not going to have that problem with the next one.
I'm sure we'll have new problems. We'll sort through and figure out and do all that. But I think regardless, whether it's a 50-gallon drum, a recycled fruit cart, or if you custom make something, I think there's a lot of value to wax dipping boxes. I mean, we've just to watch water just bead right off. It's pretty cool.
And I still got some of the original ones sitting outside that's all they do is sit in the weather.
Yeah. They're constantly shedding water, not absorbing any. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love paint. There's time and place maybe for color and paint and things if that's what you like. But yeah, and especially we got a branding iron, started branding all of our boxes and then dipping them. It looks. I mean, there's a certain cool factor I think with that. But we're at the point to where we're building equipment that we know needs to last. Mm-hmm. It's worth a little bit of time to wax dip them, a little bit of extra money to make sure that we have something. When I went down to the Warners and seen how they were using wax boxes, also got to visit with John Nucs down at the Nucs Honey Farm.
Yeah.
And he was showing me stuff that his dad wax dipped 30 years ago.
That's insane.
I mean, 30 years ago that they just now
and they're getting it out of a box.
Need to re-dip. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that box and I'm thinking, what's wrong with that box? That box looks better than some of my 3 and 4 year old, 5, 6 year old boxes that I painted. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of value in that. So if you want more information, you want to check that out, check out our YouTube video at Nature's Image Farm. You can see all the good times we had kind of doing that. But it's fun when you get to a point where you're starting to scale up. It can be a little daunting, though, because when you start to get to it, we're at the point to where it's costing us a lot of money to scale up.
Yeah.
But...
And I don't want to say I'm scaling up. I'd say it's more I'm scaling sideways because I'm cutting other ventures out of the farm and focusing more effort onto the bee side of things.
Well, you're scaling your bee yard up for sure.
Yes, but I'm also scaling other things down.
Right.
Substantially.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, there's only so much time in the day.
You, me, a lot of us have other businesses that we're running while growing a bee yard business or a bee business, and there's only so much time in the day. You can't do everything all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And if you try, at least I found, is you can't do much of it well.
No.
So it's worth kind of cutting things back and focus on the things that, if it's a business that are making you money, things that you really enjoy doing, finding that combination, that happy balance to where you love doing it, and it's profitable, or at least it's not costing you money. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
And that's where we get back to, the idea of a force multiplier. The skid steer that you have is not just a tool that you can use to move pallets around, but, you can use it on the farm and build up infrastructure and all the things that you need to.
Yeah.
I'm sure that thing was handier than a shirt pocket, getting your honey house graded out and moving stone and cutting a driveway. And
yeah.
I mean, it's
still going to be used a lot for that.
Yeah.
So
your bees are ready for winter. They're in winter.
I don't know if they're ready, but they're in winter.
Feeling pretty good.
How were you ready for winter?
No.
So we're in the same boat.
Just no.
It just surprised.
It's been one of those years where it's one of the years I sometimes get after myself because the year blows by so quick, and when I get to the point where I want to reflect and remember it, there's already been so much water under the bridge. It's hard to really appreciate all the little things that happen throughout the year. We started off this year just with some tremendous opportunities.
Yeah.
Started off speaking at the Utah State Beekeepers Association conference, and that was just an amazing opportunity to speak with guys like Ian Stepler, Randy Oliver, Tom Seeley.
Yeah.
Like, that was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget that. The first time it was really up there with names. Like, that was pretty, it was a lot of fun. Did a couple more speaking engagements throughout the year, like locally, bee clubs and things like that. Really enjoyed that. When you get into the first part of spring, we were already planning on kind of changing some things up on some of the equipment that we were running. We were primarily running 8 framers and 5 frame boxes, but really wanted to kind of leaning a little bit more towards 10 frame equipment just to kind of keep everything
consistent.
In the first part of 2021, we had an amazing opportunity to go down to the Hive Life Conference. You can check out our previous episodes where we talk all about that. But that led to building some amazing relationships with folks and connections. I got to travel around I got to go interview Bob Benny, Cayman Reynolds, Tennessee Tim McCandless, and then Bob invited me to go on a road trip with him to go learn from guys in Florida and film an interview for Bob's channel. Chris Runner, John Knox, Jamie Ellis, Ray Latner with Data. So I got to learn how the big guys are doing things, how commercial beekeepers are running their business, their outfits, their equipment that they're using, logistics, things like that. And that was an incredible opportunity. There's so many great guys we met along the way. Pete Ellis down there with Indian Summer Honey Farms. Of course, Chris Werner, all of his sons and daughters. A beautiful thing. You learned a lot about how a family, an entire family, sons, grandsons, daughters, the whole thing, can run a business and do it moving back and forth from Wisconsin to Florida. I mean, it was an incredible thing to be able to see and learn and be a part of. And there's just I could spend all day talking about all the things and all the people. It was a great opportunity spending some time with what I'm calling Bob Benny and the Blue Ridge All-Stars. Because the group of guys that he has working with him.
Oh, they're amazing.
They're great dudes.
They're some of the nicest guys I've had. And I had a lot of fun with them.
So Jesse, Seth, John, and everybody else there, if you're listening, man, we've really enjoyed the time that we spent.
Even though we're Yankees, we had a lot of fun down there with you.
That was a great time. I got to go back later in the year and actually work the bee yards with them all. And that was just incredible. That's where I really started to cut my teeth on working pallets, workflow. It was a great opportunity working with Bob and them, just learning how to get through a yard. There's an art to that. It's not just crack open a lid and go through high. There's a way you can kind of more meticulously go through, mark, organize, know what's going on. That was a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
So I got really excited and on fire. I could, on that drive home, just remember, just a million miles an hour.
Oh, I talked to you for a little bit and you were just a glazed over Greg.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
You could say our life direction and approach in beekeeping hit a massive fork in the road, and it was pedal to the metal and a brand new direction. You just felt a peace, and you felt that this is where I need to be going. And it was just awesome, just down the road. So we started really getting into 10-frame equipment and just running things completely different than we had in the past. Now, we still run 5-framers and still make queens for the most part and still use up some of that equipment. But it's been really nice getting everything uniform.
Yeah.
This coming year, it's going to be even more uniform, because what a trick that we've learned from the Warners is taking a 10-frame box and splitting it into 3 and using that to make nukes and queens. It's all the same box. If you need that box for anything else, you pull your dividers out, you stack them. Every box all the time is already ready to go. It could be a brood box. It could be a deep super if you wanted it. It could be set up to raise nukes. It could be set up to raise queens. To me, that made a lot of sense. And so that's kind of how we moved. A lot of our equipment is going that route. I'll still use up probably some of the 3-framers and 5-framers and things like that. But that wasn't. So we started off the year, being able to kind of share our experience through speaking engagements. Got to travel around the country. We got to interview a lot of folks. Got to learn from a lot of folks. The Hive Life Conference was an amazing opportunity, and now it's like that was before we really got crazy beekeeping.
Yeah. What do we have looking forward to with your interviews coming up?
Well, we've got one. By the time this airs, there's going to be a couple more that are going to be published. But had a great opportunity later on in the summer to sit down with Jeff Johnson with Premier Bee Foundation, and got to dig in and it's a super fascinating conversation on how Jeff got his start, how he got to where he is with Premier Bee.
I'm really interested to hear it, because I have not heard the interview at all, and I specifically asked not to.
Yeah, no spoilers, nothing.
This is my first year actually ever running Premier, and I ran it side by side with Acorn.
Yeah.
And side by side with Acorn double waxed, so it's pretty much the same product going in there.
Yeah.
And I had quite a pretty stellar experience with Premier, because all the deeps I put out this year at the out yard were all Premier.
We go into detail on the trials that we ran to get to the point to where we started off just trying some, and we went from trying some to buying pallets.
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
And I've been running plastic for a while.
Yeah.
And I've had similar experiences with all the plastic manufacturers before. Because I've ran Acorn and I've run Pierco, I've ran Right Cell. And they were all pretty much similar. And I know in previous episodes we've talked about Premier, and I was really hesitant to say anything good or bad until I actually see how it does for a full year.
Got a whole year under our belt with it now, including extraction.
Yeah. I'm quite impressed between everything, and I'm pretty sure that's the direction we're going to be pushing, is exclusively Premier from now on, just because
it makes a lot of sense.
It draws so much faster. It seems to be a better product. It's easier to snap in.
Oh, it goes in so nice.
There's forethought put into a lot of it before they just said make this pattern and print it.
What's interesting, and check out the interview with Jeff Johnson, because we kind of dive into exactly why we think or believe that Premier is better. But you talk about guys that came into a business as non-beekeepers.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need fresh eyes. You need a brand new, fresh approach that has just enough distance from a situation to kind of look through it and provide a solution to something. And I think that's absolutely incredible. What I do know is you could have not sold me on plastic foundation for anything. Never. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, I know, because I've tried.
You've tried for years to get me to plastic, and I don't want to hear it. You know, we ran...
But this guy Jeff comes out of the woodwork and you're all ears.
This guy Jeff just, you know, the great thing about it is I didn't just let Dan decide. I didn't let me decide. I let the bees choose.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. When these bees are choosing, are literally in these trials, when we're checkerboarding, Pierco, Acorn, wax foundation that I have used and swore by for years, and Premier foundation, to see the bees choose in that box, Premier, box after box after box after box, I'm thinking, okay, great. That is telling me what I need to know.
And I still have one of the brands sitting at home, and I believe I gave you a couple cases of it.
Yeah.
But and the entire year, whoever does their social media and whatever they do at Premier is fantastic, because I've tried to ignore everything they've done for an entire year.
Yeah.
Because I just want to see how it does in the bee yard.
Yeah.
And that's my deciding factor.
Yeah.
And after having the year wrapped up, I'm actually quite interested, because now they're putting out some really good content.
They've got some great videos.
Yeah.
With the 80s, or one of the largest beekeeper in the country. It's a great interview and tour. You guys can check that out on Premier's YouTube channel. Excellent video. I really can't say enough good things about them. Not only are the bees choosing to use that product, but if you have a question, if you want to know more about it, they're there to help. They're there and they want to see you do well, and they're not just trying to sell you a smoking used car.
Yeah,
that you will feel good about making that decision. And I like it because going down the natural beekeeping and the small cell and that whole thing, I think there's still merits to that. But when I let the bees choose exactly what they want to do, and the bees are going towards plastic Premier double wax foundation, that's what it takes me out of the equation and what I think. And I love it because it just is so fast to install now.
Oh yeah.
It is just so incredibly quick. And if you want to, for whatever reason, flip that out and put a new sheet in, I mean, it's seconds to pop it out, put a new one in. You go about it, you can still reuse your frame.
Yep.
If you do want to harvest the wax, you can scrape all the wax right off the foundation, render it, do what you want to do, and put that frame right back in the hive, put it back into use. For some reason, if your bees get by you, and you do have any kind of loss and you've got funky frames, it's a lot different when the core of the frame is plastic than it is with fully wax.
Yeah.
Some of those fully wax ones, like I've had in the past, they get absolutely destroyed and are devastated with hive beetles and wax moths, and they just get to be where they're unusable.
Yeah.
But if you God forbid, you're in a situation where you've got some foundation that's funky because of a dead out when it's on plastic, it's no problem. You scrape it off, clean it off, put it back into use, you're good to go. We've needed a lot of help from force multipliers this year to kind of get us to where we did. We started off, after all those amazing learning and educational trips and the filming that we did with Bob, and for his YouTube channel, sitting down with Cayman and everybody else. Now we had to get back to the farm and get back to our beekeeping and kind of get going. We're getting all the equipment kind of built out. We're going towards 10 frames. We're wax dipping. We're getting, all of our splits made. We're making queens, getting everything ready for queen cells and our nuke cells. And then we have our annual Greg and Dan's excellent bee adventure where we deliver packages to a bunch of states. That's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Meeting with folks and going on a road trip.
Castle did it live this year. That was actually a lot
great.
of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. If you want to see what that looks like, check out the Castle Hives YouTube channel. He went live when he was there waiting for us to bring packages, and that was a lot of fun. Brian Coper over at Castle is a great guy. I love his approach with his beekeeping channel because he's just open, honest. He's just sharing what he's doing, and that's encouraging. Because as a beginning beekeeper, you know that you don't have the answers. You know that you don't know. But some folks try to share information as though they are the leading or the official stance or source of the information, and they've been beekeeping for a year or two. That's a problem. I shouldn't say it's a problem, but what happens is if whoever's watching those videos, if they don't know the context of the video and they see someone is doing a certain method or a certain way, that can be sometimes harmful.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever discourage anybody from creating content at all.
Yeah.
It's just something it's one of those things where that's the reality of it, and it's hard to kind of see through that sometimes. But there's a lot of great content creators out there that are just humbly and honestly sharing their approach, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. And I actually, I'm really excited for a lot more collaborations with folks. Recently, Clark's Honey and Such tagged us in a video. John Clark did a neat little Christmas video where it was all these little stocking stuffers and gifts for beekeepers, and he added us to the list and our bucket plugs, and that's
nice.
It's fun just building relations. I think I enjoy more than I love the bees and I love making bees, but I think what I enjoy the most is meeting with folks, being a part of their life, being a part of their journey, doing what I can to help them out. Those collaborations, those connections.
Well, everyone has a unique and interesting story about how they got into beekeeping.
Oh, yeah.
And that's personally what I really love to enjoy, and it's just been really fascinating finding that.
It seems like the YouTube channel is, while we do want to share some of the basics, beekeeping basics, kind of the things that we do and share our journey as we grow, I feel like almost really passionate, and in my heart I'm tugged to talk with more people and understand why they do things, but understand what's in the heart and the mind of the beekeeper.
Yeah.
And we recently just published one of the most powerful stories that I've heard
with Tim
for Tennessee. Tim McCandless.
Awesome.
If you haven't seen that video, check out Beekeeping Saved My Life with Tim McCandless. That was an incredible story. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it yet. But
what's unique is Tim's a very unique individual, but his story is not just unique to him. And that's something I kind of see through the veterans community too, is I never realized how many vets are into beekeeping. And it is a massive, massive amount. And this might be a little secret for a lot of people, which I don't really tell, is that I'm a vet also. And it's
a military veteran.
Yes.
Not a horse veteran.
Not a veterinarian. Yes.
But if you were a horse veteran, you could probably make a killing selling ivermectin right now.
Could I? Or glue.
Or glue.
Yes.
Right. Either way. It seems like a lot of folks that are coming into our life, or we're going to able to hear their story.
Yeah.
A lot of us get to a point in life where almost tragedy strikes, or we're at a point to where our life as we know it is almost, the rug is almost swept out from underneath of us, and then all of a sudden life looks different, and we go down a different road, and it seems like there are a lot of beekeepers that have had that happen to them. It's just it's incredible for folks to be open enough to share.
Did you ever read that? What was it? That brochure I sent to you? I'm trying to think. It was in like the. I sent you the link. It was like in the Cornell Library or something like that.
Oh, right.
You remember that one?
Yeah. Was it World War II vets?
No, it was 1918. So that would have been World War I.
Wow.
It was a beekeeping magazine that had. I'll try to find the link for Greg on this one, but it was the therapeutic values through like the Department of War for veterans of beekeeping and the adaptive equipment they have made for veterans coming back.
What was interesting about that article is it was actually not only was it set up as can we call it therapy?
Yeah.
Rehab, whatever you want to call it. But there was also a start your own business kind of approach where these things can be turned in to something that you can do as an occupation once you come back.
It was a how-to guide to make money and also help the war effort. Yeah, It was one of the most fascinating things, and I've heard for years it's been out there, and finally to see it.
There is something about these darn little bugs in a box that seem to not they resonate. They speak to us. There's something about it that just it's so incredibly helpful and beneficial to us. I know we're really excited about the upcoming Hive Life Conference in January down in Sevierville, Tennessee.
What's the name of the city?
Sevierville.
Sevierville. That is not what I've been saying.
I keep asking
Sarahville?
Cayman, how do you say? We've been through there a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It's Severville, Seaverville, what?
Yep.
I asked Cayman, how do you say that? Sevierville.
Alrighty then. That's a new one for me.
Sevierville, Tennessee. And that's going to be awesome. There's going to be so many great speakers: Bob Benny, Ian Stepler, Kent Williams, Rick Sutton, Dirt Rooster. I think Mr. Ed's going to be down there. There's going to be. I know I'm missing. Nature's Image Farm will have a booth set up, and we're actually going to do something a little different where it's a little cross collab between the podcast, the Contrary Beekeeper Show, and Nature's Image Farm, all in the same booth, and we're going to set up a collaboration corner where we're inviting content creators, beekeepers with stories. Come by, see us, sit down. Let's talk about bees. Let's talk about your story. Let's collaborate. Bring a camera. We'll do a double thing. Life is so much richer, I think, with more folks in it and collaborating with each other and just being a part of each other's storyline, I think is awesome. So if you are heading down to the Hive Life Conference, be sure to stop by our booth, say hi. If there's something that you want to share, we'll get you in front of a mic. We'll have a good time. We'll also be down there slinging bucket feeders and plugs and some other supplies. We'll be the Oprah of plugs and bucket feeders as everyone gets boom, boom, boom.
Everybody gets a plug.
That's going to be awesome. We were talking about veterans and things like that too. Really excited about March 5th at the Hives For Heroes Benefit. We'll be speaking along with Bob Benny and Ian Stepler, Cayman Reynolds, Matt Lance, Buzz Vance. There's going to be some great vendors there too. That's going to be out in Lincoln, Nebraska. For more information on that, you can go to our website at naturesimagefarm.com, click on events. You can see where we're speaking. We'll have all the links there too. But I really enjoy just sitting down and meeting with folks. It's so rewarding. I wish there was more time to do all that.
Yeah.
All those are kind of done in like the off beekeeping seasons, just like it was this year. But it's been one heck of a year. By the time that we, got our Nucs out, our queens out, you and I went on the package run. We had some pretty exciting things happen at the farm, which kind of put us down a whole new road on opportunities kind of moving forward. But we were able to move, or we're in the progress of moving from our current farm to a whole brand new farm. And at this new place, there's just so many opportunities to do so much. It's just really exciting. So it's been a challenge moving the bee yards to the new farm. At the new farm, there is just way more room to spread out with buildings and acreage and all kind of opportunities. Getting the bees moved to a single place to keep an eye on them, to treat, to feed, has been really handy. I wish I was a little bit further along. But one of the really fun things that I did this year, probably one of the highlights of the year, was when I was down working with Bob Benny and all them. Mm-hmm. I brought back a ton of queen cells.
Yeah.
Off of his Sukobi queens, and then mated them in our yard with the singles and things that came from Bob with those drones. But we also mixed that up with all of our stock that has survived our neglect for all these years. So we've blended kind of Bob's Southern Appalachian queens with our Northern Appalachian genetics, and then created something that I'm really excited about that's here. They're darker bees. They're really gentle. They're prolific. They kind of have a different vibe than we've seen bees in the past, where they seem dedicated to their work. They're kind of chilled out and mellow. It really takes a lot to kind of fire them up, but it's really hard to explain. I think different genetics, you'll see them move around, and kind of their overall just kind of vibe to the hive seems to be a little different with these bees. I'm not sure if it's the New World Carniolean mixed with the Caucasian. That's probably it. But they just seem, it's almost like it's like a smooth flowing stream. They're just doing their thing on a hive. Sometimes you'll get bees that can be really jumpy, and they're just almost like jumping off the frame, or they're just really excitable, and they're just it's a whole different thing. But these ones, there's a certain mellow groove thing going on with them. I really like that.
I've been quite pleased with them so far too.
I'm glad that they've worked out for you. We've really gone in that direction for our genetics, to where now they're New World Carniolean Caucasian mixed with all of our survivors from all these years and years and years. And they're making beautiful colonies, beautiful queens. I'm really excited. This year, we're actually ramping up our queen production pretty significantly.
I'm going to be asking for like 50 or 60 from you.
You got it. We're trying to get these genetics to a lot more beekeepers because they're just seem to be doing amazing. So in our Nucs, be the same genetics. Our queens that we're going to ship out. We're actually going to be shipping queens this year. With the whole Rona thing, we had to cut back on that because we were having too much loss from a couple of the carriers, and it wasn't we didn't that wasn't a part of the business enterprise that we had to push. So we just kind of laid back on that, which gave us some more opportunities to get a lot more queens and genetics into more folks locally. So that was kind of a win-win. I really enjoyed doing that too. But at the new place, it's just awesome. There's so many places to put bees now. There will never not be enough places there. I say that now, but I'm sure Chris Werner probably said that, and Bob said that at some point. There's so much their acreage there is set up to where we can set up beautiful mating triangles where we have yards that can be a quarter to half a mile apart from each other, so we can really saturate our area with the drones that we want and really have some excellent mated queens. So I'm really looking forward to spending a lot of time this year doing that. We're currently it's been an incredible blessing, the opportunity to get to a larger farm that has outbuildings on broad acres. We're currently getting a real wood shop put together. And I mean, we even splurged and have concrete, Dan. Can you believe it? Concrete.
I was there that day.
You were there.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to seeing the concrete in your building too. We've gotten by. That's the thing about beekeeping is you get by with what you have. You do the best you can, and you keep after it. You keep after it. You keep after it. And then sometimes you just hit an opportunity.
What's that word that guy used to always say? You have to have what was it?
Be tenacious.
There it is.
That's what Bob says. Bob says you have to be tenacious. Tenacity, I think, is what wins. And that's, man, we would pour limestone screenings, dirt floors, you name it, try to do the best we can. And now it feels like such a luxury to have a concrete floor. We'll get these buildings closed in, and we're building these big outfeed tables. And that was a lot of fun, too, was spending time with Bob in the wood shop. Is getting to see how Bob Benny, everything's set up. And I think what I'm building is almost like it's almost a mirror image of what he has, layout, things like that. It's comfortable. It makes sense. The workflow is great. So we're looking forward to being able to build a ton of boxes, a ton of equipment. We have a lot more room at the new farm. And so now we're getting into retail. So now we're actually able to provide folks great quality boxes, frames, foundation, feed, kind of a whole package. So not just nukes and queens and packages anymore, but beekeeping supplies. And that is so much fun. Being able to meet the needs for our folks locally is incredible. It's so awesome because when there's a demand for a good quality product, and there is the people there that support that, you can do things like get better pricing. You can bulk buy things, and everybody wins. Everyone gets way better pricing, and they can come pick it up locally. You know, a lot of folks I think are yearning for more of that mom-pop relationship rather than kind of these large-scale conglomerates. It's really tricky, and I don't want to.
Well, I think it's more that they want to support local because Amazon's not sponsoring their kids' t-ball team. It's the local pizza shop.
That's right. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. That really does make, all the difference in the world.
And I specifically do not hate Amazon. I love Amazon to death.
I wish we weren't Amazon junkies, but
it is what it is.
I needed a dado insert for the table saw. Next day. Yeah. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
I need a dado insert for an old Delta contractor saw. It was probably made in the 80s.
Yep.
Well, of course, they haven't changed a lot of those. But anyways, next day. Yeah. Out here in the middle of nowhere, next day.
Yeah, I did that with white lithium grease Thursday night. It was there Friday night.
It was so awesome. One of the most, I'm really excited about the new wood shop. There's two really cool things that I've seen at Bob's place. Is he has this really cool dust collection system with blast gates. So he's got the little gates that he closes off to keep all his equipment, with the dust collection. But it's just a simple little detail. And I didn't appreciate it until recently. And I ordered a couple of these things. One of the things was one of those Maya flip stops, those rails that go right next to your radial saw, and you set the flips. So when you're running hundreds of pieces through, it's all the same width. Just boom, go, boom, cut. Order one of those. It's something extremely simple, but a push button box for stop and start for the equipment. That's not
push button box, like an electrical box that you just
right. So we found an old 1956 Delta Rockwell radial arm saw. And this thing weighs a ton. It's a tank. And what's great about it is it will cut a lid or a bottom board. It actually has a big enough throat to do that.
Yeah.
So we built this huge 21-foot outfeed table, built this thing into it, and it has a switch on the side. It's a little tiny switch. I got these, big sausage fingers, especially this hand, after smashing that in the post pounder. But anyways, trying to flick that little switch on each time, it's not the end of the world. But what Bob has, and I hadn't seen it before, and, if you've worked in a wood shop, it's probably common. But, it's a box that's mounted up next to your saw, and when you go to run it, you open up your dust collector blast gate, you push the on button, you run your saw, then when you're done, you press the off button. So it's an on-off button. Doesn't seem like that's a big deal, but when you're in a wood shop all day long, and just you get in the habit of knowing where things are. I also got one for my table saw that I can mount down low. I can just reach down, know where it is, turn it on, and then when I want to turn it off, it has a little bump stop, big red paddle you can just hit with your knee.
Yeah.
And just turn. That's cool.
Yeah.
Just little tiny things like that, which was also
make life easy.
Which was also Amazon came the next day, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Little tiny things like that just make the workflow, just like learning workflow on a pallet with Bob, learning workflow in a wood shop, just it was an incredible opportunity.
I want to learn the workflow of the pallet with Bob. That'd be.
It's completely different. I will say, and I've got to say this, Bob has some new videos out with a North Carolina beekeeper.
Yeah.
Greg Rogers. And I saw something in there, and Susan said, "Well, I said you should do that earlier on in the year." I'm thinking, no, I'm not doing that. Well, Greg Rogers has pallets 2 ways and 4 ways, or there are 2 ways that are sandwiched, that are stacked on top of cinder blocks, which seems ridiculous. Why would you have pallets if you're going to put them on cinder blocks? But he's down in a floodplain. Flat spots in the mountains are usually, like Bob and him mentioned, are usually in a floodplain or a high water area. for me, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm 6'2", I'm young, I'll be 40 this year. But the biggest thing that I've noticed with pallets...
40 this year?
I will be 40 this year, yeah. I feel older than that. Especially this year after pallets. I will say that's the only thing about the pallets is I feel like the stress that's put on my body, not moving them, but working them. A single pallet on the ground and single boxes, that's a far way for me to reach down and work. And so I end up finding ways to sit on a box or do this or do that to where I can do it to where it makes sense. But man, I'm telling you, my lower back, it was tore up all year.
See, I almost prefer pallets over hive stands.
Not for my back, I don't.
And that's, I'll sit on a deep.
Well, that's the only thing that I could do to not be in pain.
And it's so much more comfortable, and I'm so much more quicker sitting down. And I don't know what it is about it, but it just seems easier.
Well, there's something about sitting on a box next to a hive when you go through it to where it's a weird, it's like a different relationship with the box. I 100% prefer hive stands, hands down, because I can go from one to the next down a row of 50 or 75 in no time. And I don't hurt. I'm not in pain. It's like I can do that constantly. But I get into some of these yards with the 4-ways and just the bending down to do this, but just the in and the outs to sit. I'm hoping maybe, it's just one of those things where it's an unfamiliar piece of exercise or a strain on a muscle group that eventually gets better. But I'm starting off with a bad vertebrae to start with. Yeah. And it seems to be aggravating that. So I like the idea that I seen on that video of Bob's where they're up on cinder blocks, and Susie
brings it up a little bit.
Was saying, she said I should do that starting off in the year. If you're having trouble with it, can you get them off the ground higher? I couldn't at the old farm because, we're literally in a hillside. I had these 4-ways chalked up 6 inches to get them level. Yeah. And that's over a pallet width. Yeah. So 36 inches, they're jacked up 6 inches. That's a huge slope. Matter of fact, when we moved all the pallets, or most of the pallets from one farm to the other, you have to pick up the whole pallet and lay it flat on the ground, because the tractor or the skid steer to go in there and get them has to be ground level to pick them off. There was that much slope. But I'm hoping to do a little better on that, maybe some exercises or some kind of a better core strength.
This might sound weird, but have you tried yoga?
I haven't tried yoga.
Try it.
No.
Because I know I got back issues. And through all that, yoga is really the one thing that keeps me going. My back and my knees are pretty poor. Yeah. I got to do something because there are way more pros to the pallets than there are cons. So it's definitely something that I want to try to do better with, either get them up off the ground or I'm not sure, but that could be we should have a whole other episode on scaling up the equipment that we're using and how we're using it. Not that we're experts in it. But just what we're going from, because we've gone from backyard beekeeper to small sideline scale in a really short amount of time. Very short.
And I don't, it's when you go from 2 hives to 20 to now 200, that approach, not a lot changes for quite a while, but then when it changes big.
It does, definitely.
So now you and I have gone.
It's very big numbers, very fast.
You and I have gone from 8-frame boxes with quart jar feeders to flatbed trucks, skid steers, 4-way pallets, and moving bees around. Yeah. That's we're kind of scaling up a little bit.
We did that in a very less than 5 years.
Yeah. Pretty well, we've been at it for probably 8 years now.
Yeah, but when we started making the real moves,
getting to the point to where we stopped killing all the bees. Yeah, and then had something to work with. Yeah, that's probably been 5 years, but it's been an incredible year. I feel like
minus the crappy nectar flow, it has been a very incredible year.
There's been so much. There's been so many pros this year. Oh yeah, you and I have a ton of growth. Scaling up, growing our business, infrastructure,
crazy
barns, buildings
put in front of both of us, and it's just been
one door after the other seems to be opening, and it all started. It seems like with the connections that we've made, the people that have come into our life, and that have humbly and graciously kind of taken us under their wing and to teach and to learn and show. It's been awesome. Speaking of awesome folks coming into our life, we've had folks send us honey, and we've accumulated some honey. And I wanted just to take a second for a little honey spotlight of folks that have supported us.
Quite the little collection started.
Quite the little collection here. We've got all kinds of honey. We've got sourwood honey from Bob Benny at Blue Ridge Honey Company, and it is absolutely amazing. I've never had anything like sourwood.
No.
It has like a certain zap to it and a certain sweet mellowness. It's hard to explain. I've never had honey that tasted quite like that.
Yeah.
It is super good. I understand what all the buzz is about.
I like your little bee pun there.
That was pretty good, wasn't it? That was pretty good. Another fantastic honey comes from right here in Ohio, from the one and only Dan and Christie Bokros at Red Dog Ranch. Super good honey. That particular honey is my favorite because it's a fall flow, and it's just so rich. But I think more folks should seek out that fall honey that crystallizes, because I like the crystallized honey better than I like the regular liquid honey, just because it's so amazing in honeys and teas when you're cooking with it. I love the... Oh, nice cup, Dan.
Thank you. A friend let me use it.
Really? I also have one from one of our fellow collaborators that says, "Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition." And that has some Bob Benny sourwood honey in there. And I'll admit, it's not coffee. Today, we're feeling sophisticated, and we're drinking tea. Pinkies out.
Earl Grey tea. It's delicious.
We also have some really awesome comb honey from Brian Coper at Castle Hives.
Yeah.
I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Packing that and getting the bees to a point to where they'll actually produce that, getting the equipment in place.
Yeah.
I mean,
comb honey's a difficult one to start to master.
It's not just a frame of honey you're pulling. There's some work.
Yes.
It's timing. It's
all about timing. We've been doing comb honey for this was our second year doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm nowhere near mastering that one.
Yeah. It's awesome. Looks beautiful. Looks great. We also have some really unique honey from Chris down at Nucs Honey Farm. And it's a hemp honey.
Huh.
And it is really good. It's got a nice rosy kind of a color. It's got a unique flavor. It's really awesome. I really love that too. I enjoy when people send us stuff. When they send us honey to try, they want to send us a letter. They want to send us a gift card to Rural King. I'm just kidding. If you want to send us a letter, you want to send us some honey to showcase, we'll talk about it on the show. You can send that to Nature's Image Farm at P.O. Box 1074 here in Zanesville, Ohio, 43702. And if you send any bikinis or Speedos, make sure they're in Dan's size.
Yep. Medium.
Well, I want to thank you for listening, for watching. There's going to be so much going on. I feel like we've tried to put this year in some kind of a package to talk about it. But I feel like I'm already past this year. I'm into 2022 and all the preparation, all the things that are going to be happening, all the things going on there too. It's going to be awesome. If folks want to find out more, they can go to naturesimagefarm.com. They can check out all the things that we have to offer. You can check out Red Dog Ranch on your Facebook and your Instagram.
Yep.
And see what you and Christie are doing in your honey adventures, seeing how you kind of put your honey house together. It's a lot of fun kind of doing this together, and we're doing different things, and it's just fun to. I mean, beekeeping is just fun. The people are great. The bees are awesome.
Just think we're here because of bugs in a box.
Because of bugs in a box. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for watching, for listening, for spending a little time with us. As always, be the lighthouse.
Be cool.
And be the change that you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time.
Boom.
Hey
Hey, can you help us out? Hit like, subscribe, share with all your friends, and be sure to check these great videos out too.